Hi guys, today we're doing probability, really just a review because we did an IXL on this one before. It's knowing the difference between an independent and dependent event and how you can figure out the probability for those. So it's pretty simple, just like this. A independent event means it's the events that are happening are independent of each other. They do not depend on the other one happening. So the example would be pretty much the ones that we had done in class so far. Heads or tails, just a coin toss. Heads or tails, 1/2 chance of getting heads. Then a spinner of 4 chances, 1, 2, 3, 4. The chances of getting a 1 on those, 1/4 chance. They are totally independent of each other. And if you do the math on those, this is a 1/2 probability. This is a 1/4 probability. The probability of getting a heads and a 1 is, just multiply those, 1/8 of a chance. Pretty easy. So you're just multiplying, we did that the other day, you're just multiplying the probabilities, the chances, top times top, bottom times bottom. That'll give you the probability of this event happening. And a dependent event, the second one's going to really depend on the first one, the one that happens before. And you'll hear that this is the case, and then if this happens, then this is going to happen. Or this one, and then you're not going to replace it, and then the next one too. So they depend on each other. An example would be like marbles. These are my marbles down here. The chances of picking a blue marble out of these is 2 chances, and there's 14 of them. So the chances of getting a blue one are 2 out of 14. Now the chances of, and that's pretty easy. So 2 out of 14. But now the chances of getting a blue one on your first pick, that's totally different. The chances of getting a blue one on your first pick and then a blue one on your second pick, now they're dependent events. And dependent events work like this. What's the probability of getting a blue one? It's 1 out of 14 on your first pick. It's not like how many blue ones, it's what's the chances of getting a blue one on your first pick. Now, whatever your first pick was, if you take that out, then you're not replacing it. So whatever the chances are of getting a blue one on the first one, it's 1 out of 14. And then the chances of getting a blue one on the second one are not 1 out of 14 anymore because we already took that one out. So it would be 1 out of 13. And I did not pick very good numbers, but if you multiply those, that's the total possibilities of getting a blue one on the first pick or the second pick. Now that's a dependent event. What about a third pick? It'd be 1 out of 12. And this is kind of how those permutations work, where it's 14 times 13 times 12. If there's 3 events, you'll use 3 of those numbers. Another example would be if I have 2 blues in here, I have 2 blues, and then I'll have, I have 6 different possibilities. So my chances of drawing a blue on the first one, and then a chance of drawing a blue on the second one. It's hard. It's like a chance of drawing a blue on the first one is 1 out of 6. But if I drew a blue on the first one, it's 1 out of 6 times. But if I drew a blue on the second one, so on my first one, I drew a blue, that's 1 out of 6 chances. But the chances of me of drawing another blue out of this is a 1 out of 5 chance. So the chances are 1 out of 6 and then 1 out of 5. So the chances that I draw 2 blue, because it depends on each other, because I'd have to draw a blue the first time, draw a blue the second time, it depends. It'd be 1 out of 30 chances that if I drew 1 and did it again without replacing it, drew the other one, I'd have 1 out of 30 chances that that would happen. And that's an independent event. For your extra credit today, I got this in the mail because I have to fill this out very soon. This is called the census. Every 10 years in the United States, it's required in the Constitution that you have a census. Census, fancy term for counting everybody in the United States. And they count everybody in the United States to decide where money might go when they're spreading out the money, and also how many representatives you get in your state. So they're looking at those, and that's by law. You have to fill it out, and I better get mine filled out because this is my second request. So please, in the comment sections, please write down what happens every 10 years in the United States. For your assignment today, pretty easy one. It's page 779, 1 through 10, and then 781, 16 through 19. Do not do number 20. That has to do with all those probabilities of adding up dice, and we don't need to look back at that one from before, so not a big deal. And then 21 through 28, so 16 through 19, and then 21 through 28. The IXLs that you have to do are just one. II9 has to do with independent and dependent events, and it'll ask you what's the probability of certain things happening. And in this case, the probability, it'll ask like, what's the probability of getting a 1? So that's 1/3, I'm sorry. Then it'll say, what's the probability of, without replacing it, so that's gone. And then what's the probability of drawing a 2 now? And that's 1/2 of a chance. So to find the total probability of getting a 1 and then a 2, that's a dependent, is 1/6. It'll have you do those. And sometimes there'll be independent events. Then you just find out the probability of each, multiply them. If it's dependent and it'll say not replace, then you just do it for that. Same rules as all. Make sure you submit your things, anything that's late, get it done, and get to work.